welcome everybody. I'm very happy to see for the third time the last of our this week's session here. So I have to say a few things about being super happy to collaborate again after last semester with the Kunsthall, which I think it's not just a beautiful space we're in here, it also means a lot for me as a teacher, because Kunsthalls, contemporary art spaces, are not just places where art is shown when it's polished outside and when it's ready and then just put into a white cube. There are also places where artists meet, where ideas ping pong, where discussions and also sometimes opposite opinions, like we saw with the seed savers. There was a tiny bit of like a discussion coming up. But the main thing is that Kunsthalls and contemporary art spaces are also places of production. So for us as artists and you as becoming artists and young artists, they are spaces that we need to inhabit and that we need to be in dialogue with and share energies. And this is a particularly amazing place and a particularly great team to work with. Even if Carl and Steffi are not here, we greet them in some immaterial, invisible way. Okay. But I also want to say this is a connection between Blockadia Tiefsee, the photography course captures on modules on light capturing, and the art and ocean course. So for those of you who constantly struggle with the confusion, this is an anchor. I know it's not at the right time of both of the courses, but still I think in the talk by Solveig Lønseth, which I'm very happy to have next to me, some of these connections will in the content find together, and I think that's much more important than all the confusion around. As the real introduction, I also want to briefly say that I'm very, very happy not only that I know Solveig since quite some time, that I'm also working in Oslo, so she has been a student at the Academy in Oslo. But also we had a kind of very interesting and key trigger field trip to Lofoten some years ago. And we will talk after the talk, we will talk about the promised field trip, because it's happening. It just needs and wants a little bit of commitment from your side, because it's not that cheap. So it's very clear reasons, but it's happening, and it's going to be happening to the space that Solveig is inspired, and that is very important for her practice in a different way than Cecil's talk yesterday, but also in a very inspiring magic and material way that is beautiful to see in a practice, but also is something that you should share, you should grasp, and that is very important for art education, I think. But this moment that she just told me that she will show a little image from that, and I still remember that. I think you were probably a BA student, and it was the first time I went up to the north of Norway, so it was really like crazy, but it was also always raining, and I was like, I'm gonna be so sick when I survive that, and blah blah blah, as a very stupid person up in this rough weather. But then I was like super impressed that at one point we were looking at the, I think, Dan Graham sculpture, or a piece on the island, sculpture piece. Solveig, out of the little group of students, kind of went up. I think she made a little speech. It was not a long speech, more cryptic than comparable to what I do. And then she went into the water, and it was maybe like this time of the year, and there was no sauna around, and there was nothing to heat us up. And she just went into the ocean, and this, not only the image, but I also thought like, whoa, shh. You know, there's some power behind that. Yes, and I also want to quickly, before I know I always talk too long, but before I end this, there's another talk that I want to emphasize, which is connected to both of the courses, especially the Art and Ocean, and LIAF, the Lofoten International Art Festival, that's actually happening now, and that has a focus and an anchor around a lot of the topics that we are dealing with. And as I mentioned in the Art and Ocean, there's tomorrow a Skype by ecofeminist that is a friend and a very, very interesting theorist today that wrote the book on called Bodies of Water that the people in the Art and Ocean have in the literature list. But that lecture is tomorrow over Skype, accessible. I remember the time, but over Facebook, Liaf. So highly recommended, and in a way is very much connected to this Bodies of Water, because Astrid and Naimanis did the same when last year we were together at the conference in Liaf speaking, and we got on very well, and then went in the morning for a talk, and she as well, she was just like, okay, Susanna, I need to do that, that's part of my research. Douche into the water, and I was like, so this is my introduction. I'm very happy to welcome Solveig here. I should also say Trondheim, Oslo-based artist that, yes, we will see more, but, and I think it becomes clear why I think it's a key thing to have you here, and we're very happy.
This is the first time I'm using this, so, and I'm used to talk quite loud, so I can tell me if this is just like, I don't know, tell me if it's too loud, okay? Thank you for coming here, all of you. It's very nice to have you here, and I actually choose to introduce my talk with one of my favorite artists. This is from the studio of Susan Whale, which I will come back to later in this talk. Just listen really carefully what she's saying. She's just poetic and beautiful.
I'm going to do blind drawing. I'm going to close my eyes and draw with just my mind talking to my hands. And I've been doing much of that since I was 18. I grew up on an island, and I was very aware of the sea and the horizon, and that I got it into my little head that straight horizon was the curve of the earth, and that you couldn't see the curve, but it was the curve. Also, as a little kid, I sort of thought the island was like floating. Then as you get older, you realize it's part of a whole world under the sea, a dimensional world. So I just attuned myself to these things. My parents, once a year, when it was the time where you'd see shooting stars, we would take army cots and we'd sleep out on the rocks. And we'd watch the sky and stars falling. It was wonderful.
Okay, so I also grew up on an island. And I was also very aware of the sea. Every summer my family went out sailing with a sailboat, so I grew up on a sailboat every summer. And when I heard this interview with Susan Whale, I felt like that was some sort of she just said something that I've been thinking of saying, or yeah. And this is an image from London, from the field trip that me and Susanne went to, together with a lot of other, or a few group of students and Anne-Katrin Dolven. And this is actually, I think it's you that took or shot this image. I found it this morning.
It's for sure not me going into the water.
And this is, I don't know, it's just like something that I feel, if I have low energy, I don't know, if there's like something bothering me, or that I need to get in touch with myself somehow, I often go out to the sea and then just like lay down or go for a swim. And I love to do it when it's cold, because then I feel that it's like even more, yeah, it's more bodily experience and a lot more, it just like makes a lot more impression in my body somehow. And this was winter time. I have lived in Trondheim, and that was in 2005 to 2008. And in between there I worked on a tall ship, the biggest tall ship of Norway. It's called the Lønseth. And Lønseth, that's the name of one of our prime ministers, I think. Google it. This is me up in the row or in the mast. It's 48 meters tall. So we climbed up there and set sails, and we went over the Northern Sea several times. This has, of course, also made a deep impression to who I am today and also my art. Here is from one of the trips to the Faroes, and we all of a sudden we met this orkan, I'm not sure what it's called in English. The waves were like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 meters tall, and the ship was just like really dancing around, and we were not allowed to go on the deck before asking the captain. And this is like the minute before one of the waves just like flushes the whole deck on the ship. And we had to turn and go back to Shetland, and then we stayed there for 2 days. From my early work, like after I was finished on working on the Lønseth, I applied for his art school in Lofoten, and I started there in 2008. And one of my first artworks there was let's call it a poetic gesture that I did. I wrote letters to all my family and friends living different places around Norway and the world, and said to them that 12 o'clock on this specific date I will put my finger in the ocean, and I would be very glad if you do the same, so we can be on the same place somehow. And that was something I've been thinking a lot about after, because it's like, I think it's like really, it's like, I think actually it's a really beautiful young art student's work. My last work in Lofoten was a film, because I come somehow from photography, and I worked a lot with analog and moving image. My last work from Lofoten was a film from a whale. Also, it's called hvalmottak in Norwegian. I don't think there's an English word, or it's like whale reception or fish reception, where all the whale and fish comes in after with the boats in Lofoten. And then I filmed that space before the whale entered, so it was like wide cube-ish, and then I had this camera walk through. I don't have that film with me now, but that was like, I left Lofoten with this photography and film luggage. And then I started as an art student in the Art Academy in Oslo, where Susanne has been my professor since. Or not now, but she from like, I was studying there for 5 years, and I think you actually were my professor all those years, from 2010 to 15.
Yes, I don't remember.
So you and the ocean has the mark on my artwork. But now I want to show you a work that I haven't. This is not a work. This is the documentation. But just to, also all my earlier works were like really directly connected to the ocean. Now they are more like, it's a little bit more hidden maybe in my sculptures. But this is one work that's like really connected to the ocean, and I want to show you. So I can talk you through it. It's I was was invited to do be this guest artist during the Ibsen Festival in Oslo in 2014, and I was asked to pick or to choose 7 quotes from Ibsen, or some quotes from Ibsen. It ended up with being 7, and all of the quotes was about the ocean. So here I am in Skien and exposing analog 120mm film for water and light. So what I actually did is that I'm opening the unexposed film, and then I'm taking my hands under the surface, and then I'm starting to roll the film from one hand to another, and then somehow using my hands as a camera opening, or like this. So all the light that came through was through my fingers, and then it was like directly also exposed for this salt water. And then I developed the film, and then I printed out 7 parts of the film that I found connected to the quotes that I've chosen. So here's one of them. It's hard to see now in this dark, but it's a very dark image also.
Solveig, skal jeg ta den på skjermen?
Ja, du kan gjøre det. Jeg tror det går bra. Det er ikke så veldig mange. Ja, du kan gjøre det bare. Eller jeg elsker dagslys. Ja.
Spectacular, like you see a lot of light.
Ja, ja. Just let it be open.
Her.
Bare la det være åpent.
How do people feel? Can one see it from up there? Yes.
Okay, good, because it's better with daylight. Which is actually also one of my main materials for working with art. I'm working with light, daylight, architecture and photography. And then now I was starting to work with, or it developing into being photographic sculptures somehow, and you will see that a little later. But this is actually one of these images from 2014. And I find it interesting that it actually expresses an horizon, at least for me. And it reminds me of the modern light. Also, not only the light, the northern light, but the light here up north. Through this talk, I want to tell you about my work since then, and then some of them are also connected, or most of them are connected to the ocean, but I also want to talk to you about this light capturing works. So this is my masterwork from 2015. I will come back to all this later. I just briefly go through what I will show you now. This is the...
Hopefully people did see the light in the...
Yeah, but it'll come back. But you can see it's a little light there in the opening. This is reflection of light on grains of paper. Surrounding oceans, which was my solo show here in Trondheim Framtidskunst in 2017. And at certain hours, sunlight falls in oblique lines. Colochlorochromia. And one of the newest is Bo. Needs some water. That's also maybe why I'm so fond of the ocean, because the water is a part of us. This is Kunstnernes Hus in Oslo. We were having our degree show in the main exhibition spaces in the Skylight halls. A few months, and then I was working 2 months with my masterwork, 2 years almost with my masterwork, and then I was working with the light in the Skylight there. The building is built of Blockadia Tiefsee, which were architects living in Oslo in the beginning of the 1930s, and the house is of course built for the artists. It's a very special space, or 2 special spaces. I think it's a deeply bright, special space. And then just a few months before the opening, we were told that we couldn't have our exhibition in the Skylight halls because there were going to be a retrospective exhibition of Tom Solveig, who recently had died. And that was, of course, very easy to understand.
Who knows Tom Solveig? One of the most important Norwegian photographers. Everyone has to Google.
He's he was a specialist with light and shadow. Worked mostly with
And also a grip hand on reality. And
really checking out. And then so then the first thing I said was that okay, fine, then I'll bring the daylight or the skylight down to the first floor where we will exhibit. So I started to work with this sculpture that were made of a fiber optic, or it was a fiber optic cable. Fiber optic cable is this high technological equipment, you can say, that are used in different, it's used in medicine, it's used in serving us Wi-Fi all day long, it's used in it's what it does is that it reflects light in this glass or PVC strings or strands, and then it goes through. So I wanted to, here's also this is a fiber optic cable bolt connecting continents with the internet and other technological. So what I did was that I mounted this fiber optic cable in the top there, you can see, in the skylight. And then I asked for permission to draw it through.
And here you can see a little bit of Tom Solveig.
Yeah. And then I was allowed to have my cable through his exhibition, and then it went out, and then it drew this line through the whole exhibition, or through the whole architecture actually. And then it ended up in the first floor like this, and then in the end of the cable you could see directly an analog transmitted skylight from above. So in the evenings there was not light there, and then if it was like really direct sunlight it was super bright. And this was a 60-meter long cable. The first, or some of the last, when I was in my last year on the master's studies, I was in this group that were going to Hamburger Bahnhof, or it was a course that was based on the Black Mountain College School, basically. And then this course ended up in being a part of an exhibition at Hamburger Bahnhof in 2015. This is the group. Actually, the woman in the white dress there, that's Anna Daniel, which have some show up here now. So that's So there we are. We are a handful of students preparing on my truck to do this exhibition in Hamburger Bahnhof. And then this was the exhibition. And this house here is Black Mountain College. I'm not sure if you have heard about it. It's probably one of the best art schools ever. It was built during the 1930s, and then it didn't last for so many years, but a lot of the Bauhaus students and staff, they went from Europe because of the war, and then they went to Black Mountain College in South Carolina to study and to teach. And there they met other students and stuff, and then they built this school together, where people were like working, eating, sleeping, living together. They were like growing their own vegetables, they were making all dinners and then eating together, and then it was dancing, music, sculpture, weaving, you name it. Here's one of the classes. It's Josef Albers standing up there, and then these students. I think it's John Johnson, which is in the white shirt. And here is also John Johnson, which is a photography by Helen Larsen Archer, which was one of the photography students there, and she was working she was like a very good photographer, and in the end she was actually also teaching, so she stepped up to be a teacher, and she was the head of the photography department. The photography department burnt down, so there's not so much footage left from it. This is also a photography of Helen Larsen Archer, but it's I think it's Cunningham dancing. And here is Susan Whale, which I showed you in the beginning of this talk. And behind her is Rosenberg, which was her boyfriend at the time, Bob. And this is a cyanotype or a blueprint made of Bob or Rosenberg now. And it says Susan, so it's Susan in the window with flowers. And they were actually one of the first to make these full-scale images or blueprints of humans. So there's a very little image. It's Susan Whale on the floor and then Rosenberg exposing and making her into this blueprint somehow with flowers. And here they are in their dark room on Blockadia College, working together.
They turned their bathroom into dark room, which is what a lot of people do when they don't have access. But luckily we have a dark room that...
I heard that's quite good, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I've also turned my bathroom into dark rooms several times. Here is the exhibition space, so it's the hall you probably know if you have been to Hamburg Bahnhof. And they have built this museum or like exhibition architecture to be in the direction of the building from Blockadia College. So it was quite changed from how I have seen it before, when I've only seen the collection of Hamburg Bahnhof there. And here is our department, or where we worked when we was there, because it was 6 art schools from all over Europe that were invited to come there and do these artworks. And I wanted to do a work with the daylight or the skylight. So you can see it's an amazing skylight there, and then coming from my degree show with my cable, and I wanted to do to capture the light from Hamburg Bahnhof while working there. We had to read some texts. It was scheduled plan, sort of. It was we had this very strict schedule to read the different texts from the whole archive of Blockadia College. So it was like student number 3 has to go to the box 30, get the text from Josef Albers, go to place C in the exhibition space, and then read out loud for the audience. And then my plan was to then make these cyanotype prints and expose the skylight while I was reading. So I captured the light during the time I was reading. Here's an example of one of the texts. And here's my working desk. So you can see in the black bag there's unexposed blueprints, and then the schedule and my notes and my text, and I was just running around all the time because it was a lot of work to do. I had to read the text, expose the blueprints, and then I also had to develop it. So I was lucky to borrow the bøttekott, or the wet room, did it call that? And Hamburg Bahnhof. And then I was there developing all my blueprints one by one. And here they are for drawing. And this was one of them. And actually, I brought a text which is one of the texts from that time that made the biggest impression on me while I was there. There were really not so much time to prepare reading all this text, and then I just went out there and then I started to read this text from Josef Albers. And I started like, I want to read some of it for you now. This text is written 3 days before the evacuation of Paris in 1940. And then Albers, both Annie and Josef, had flown away from Europe to get safe and to work with art in the United States. And he is then writing this speech to his colleagues in Blackmore College. It may seem frivolous now, when all ears and eyes, when all minds are occupied with the frightening events abroad, to speak in such a situation about education. It may seem vain to draw your attention to a new and small college down in North Carolina in a moment when the face and the faith of the whole world may turn upside down by unexpectedly strong forces with which we do not agree. And then there's more text, and then freedom is never a present granted to us. Freedom is a personal quality. Everyone has to conquer it for himself and to conquer it again and again. And then he's talking about like being in the United States feeling very safe because it's like a really free land. And he says that we cannot think of all this for granted, like all the minerals, all the freedom, no borders, like for a lasting thing, and we cannot feel that the surrounding ocean is something that will forever protect us, because if we do not really understand what's going on out there, the war can also come here. And then that was very heavy to read, because at that moment the first Syrian refugees arrived Germany, when I was standing there reading this text, and then I felt like everything had just turned upside down somehow, and then we are in the middle of it still. And I was very, the surrounding ocean, the two words were just like really stuck to me. And I brought that with me back to Norway, and I'm wrapping it all up, categorizing and archiving it. Yeah, the last thing I did before I went, because what happened was that all of these blueprints became just unexposed. And that means that it's like, of course, not the natural daylight in that skylight, it's artificial. So they were like, none of them were exposed. And then to just finish it all up, I asked kindly one of the guards to show me where the switch to the skylight was. And then I turned it all off during the opening hours. This is Albers again teaching, and yeah, like I said, I brought the surrounding oceans with me back here, and then I applied for an exhibition at Trondheim Center for Kunst. My proposal was to reprint the whole facade and make a quite huge photography. This is John Hercel. He was the one that or he was the founder of the blueprint for the cyanotype. It was in 1842, and he made it first of all to. It was this reproduction tool somehow, so you could like reproduce notes, industrial drawings, architectural drawings, etc. And later, some of the, like really quickly, I guess. For example, Anne Atkins, which was a botanical or botanist, she started to use this technique as a to capture her floras or all the plants, and she's actually been, or we are talking about her as the first female photographer, even though she was a botanist, but she was really into this cyanotype technique. And she made a book called The British Algae, which is beautiful. I was here in the library now to ask if they have it here, but it's like a really seldom thing. Have you seen it?
I mean, never in the material.
No. And here you can see Mies van der Rohe's blueprint. So this is Neue Nasjonalgalleriet in Berlin. There is Trondheim's framtidskunst, as you have, I guess you know where it is, all of you. In Fjordgata here. And this is when I was starting to work with this project. I was lucky to get a residency in Laden Kunstverksted, in the biggest studio. And then I turned the whole studio space to a dark room. And here is when we sew together all the silk fabric so that we could later dip all of it into this liquid cyanotype emulsion, and then dry it, I mean, and then to later expose it in the space. So just before we turn off the light and the dark room starts. So cyanotype is a technique that reacts on sunlight or UV light. And here we brought all the dried silk fabric with emulsion to Telescope and mounted them on the facade. And then they were hanging there for, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 days.
You mounted it outside?
No, it was inside.
Inside?
Yeah. And what's special with that space is that it's heading, or like the windows is towards north. So it will never have direct sunlight. It will only have like this UV daylight danced, or yeah. But what happened when we were working there was that the light was reflecting from the windows on the opposite side of the street. So it actually got a lot of sunlight during the time it was hanging there, and that also that it's very, I think it's very poetic because it's also saying something about what surrounds us and our surroundings. So you can see that it's really exposing it. This is before we take it down, and you can already see that it has started to get a lot darker. And the reason why I was using silk is because it's very light, of course, and then it was easy to work with, and then it didn't really, it didn't really need so much like cyanotype emulsion as if, for example, using wool. I don't know. Yeah. So you can see that the unexposed part is still very yellow or light green, and the deeper color is where it's exposed probably. Here we are in the fjord, getting ready to develop all of it. This is in February, so again, quite cold to work. Cyanotype needs water to fix, so it felt very natural to develop it in the ocean. And if you probably now are thinking of like how much poison went out to the sea, I calculated that it was almost like, I don't know, 6. So I had the dinner spoons with powder. So not so much, and if I had done this in a dark room, it probably went into the ocean somehow. Anyways. But you can see that it's quickly fixing, and that it now had turned blue, like this blueprint. And again, it was very nice to work with silk since it's very strong and at the same time very light.
So there, just a footnote, there will be, to the Friday group, there will be a cyanotype dedicated Friday with Diana, but that's after the dark room, so that will be in November. So if you don't understand the full technique here now, it will come to your hands for
This
real later.
And this is a piece or like a little test that I did, which is developed here in the canal actually. And also when you're coloring textiles or like fabrics, or it's a good thing to have salt in it to hold the color better into the fabric. And by developing this into the ocean, it's like really getting this, I don't know, I could see a difference between developing it in a fresh, in the spring or in the ocean. This is from the salt ocean. And here it is this is the documentation from the exhibition. So I built this strands in metal, and then I wanted to break up the facade somehow, and then to put them out, like all of the 6 parts of the facade out in the exhibition space, like a more spread surrounding oceans. So this is how it looked like, finished. And the biggest one was as the biggest window, which was I think 2.8 by 6 meters or something. So they are quite huge. And they were all mounted in the height of my waist, which we call in Norwegian livet. And I think that's something very beautiful, because when you go out in the ocean to swim, then you often go to livet first, and then you're ready to swim. And at the same time it says a lot about like life and death, and that ocean actually also take life from us. Right now I'm reading a book by an Icelandic author, Jon Kalmar Stefansson, which is called Helvete og Himmelriket. If you haven't read it, I can deeply recommend it. It's absolutely talking about life and death and ocean. From Trondheim to Tours in France, I was invited to be a part of this a group show called Inland. We were a group of young Norwegian artists invited to do a show in the space of CCCOD in Tours, which is it's an art space, and the Olivier Debre, which is this painter's foundation that had like gone together and then made this new art space called CCC på det. Here is Solveig Lønseth. He's a French painter. He loved the Norwegian light and he was often visiting places with special light. And he were Lofoten, Lærdal, Oppdal. Also a very huge fantast and fan of these stave churches. So, yeah, not a coincidence that he's in front of stave church. He was painting the Norwegian light and then bringing the paintings back to France. This is the exhibition space, or the building. It's the Ed Matteus office that are the architects behind this. And as you can see, it's like this, the ground floor facade is all glass, and then you can I can show you the next image. Like there's the old building and the new building, and then on the first floor you have this opening towards, like the pink part is the glass wall, and then you have the window openings that were like supposed to draw daylight into the exhibition space in the first floor. And then of course I wanted to work with the daylight, and then the curators told me that yeah, but for this exhibition we will paint the whole space black and we will close off all the windows. So I'm like, okay, wait, I have to just like, I will come there and I will take some measurements and then I will leave and I will work with the light even though. So I went there a few months before the opening, while they still were building the space, actually. This is how it looked like then, and then there you can see the windows. So what I did, this is a very, it's a film from Instagram because it's where I have it. It's me measuring the light coming into the space, measuring the length and the angles and the capturing the light, like if the space was some sort of a camera or. So then I brought all these measurements back to my studio in Oslo, and I wanted to somehow bring the Norwegian light to France as Oliver Debre did it, but not as a painter because I'm not a painter. And then trying to, I don't know, I'm like I really want to grasp this, or try to, like in all my works, I try to find some sort of a physical, or like how can light be physical, and how can you capture light if you're not using a camera, sort of. And then thinking of all this light sensitive materials that we have all around us, for example pine, which is one of the, or it's the most light needing tree that grows in Norway, so it's really depending on the light situation, and that's also why like the pine wood is very open, because all of the pines needs a lot of light to grow. Pine has been very important also for building houses and boats during our history of time, and it is very sensitive for light, so it becomes very yellow when it is utsatt for light, or exposed for light. So here's a technical drawing of my plan for this exhibition. It was a sculpture that of this classical bærebjelke, in the same dimension as a classical bærebjelke, and it was supposed to be laying exactly where I had measured the light to end from the window. So you can see up there in the drawing that it's like this pine piece, and then I wanted to take out from the pine the piece that was light when I was there. This is not understandable, but it's like if you imagine the light coming in from a window like this, being a geometrical shape or something, and then you just like the pine bjelke is lying here, and then I took out the material from the pine. So you can also you will see it soon. So there you can see that the windows is closed, no light coming in, and this is from the opposite side. So here is the like the light that was there when I was there in November was gone, of course, when we had the exhibition, and embraced by the Norwegian light. Yeah. Here's the opening, and yeah. Finding a title for this was something that happened when I read a book by Ethel Adnan, which is she's an artist from Lebanon. She has been living both in Britain and now she lives in France. She works with poetry and painting. Ethel Adnan.
California and Paris. I was at her
Oh, yeah,
aunt's
okay.
birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Ethel
Then
Adnan.
I was not at her birthday. But she's a very good poet and also a painter, I think. And while I was working with this piece, I read one of her books, and then this sentence came in front of my eyes, like at certain hours sunlight falls in oblique lines. So then it became the title. Speaking of boats and pine and the ocean, this is the fisherman from Lofotfiske. And this is in Trøndelag. It's the ocean, or it's like, this is the island where I now live, partly. I live in Oslo, and I also live there on the island called Garten. It's, if you go out to Trondheim, and then the fjord opens, then it's one of the first islands that you will get to. It's a quite tiny and little island with approximately 200 inhabitants. And I was there for the first time in 2017, straight after the exhibition in Trondheim, where I was looking at this house for sale and couldn't really stop thinking about that house and the island, leaving the island the same evening. And I don't know, it's like working with the ocean as a it's a really deep and also it's a big part of my art, and it's been for all since I started, and also a big part of me. I always knew that I needed to have this place to go to nearby the ocean so that I could find inspiration and just like live and be much more closer to it than I am when I'm in Oslo, for example. So this is the house, and this is also where this field trip is going, if you have heard about it. This is a few weeks after we bought the house, and we had to take care of it. It was very, it's old, but it was very, not damaged, but it's standing there in very hard weather, and it's been standing there since the 1950s. So there were a lot of work to do. So we were scratching off all the old paint, and we had to change, had to set up 2 new walls, tear down the old rotten material, and there's the first new fresh going on.
Is that also pine?
And no, it's not pine. I wanted it to be, but it's not. But actually, it's made, or it's like it's made on Rissa, which is very close to the island. because I wanted it to be in have the same profile as the old material, because we're not changing all the walls, it's just like 2 of them that's been most exposed to weather and sea for years. And here we're repainting it in a new color, new era. This is the other side of those. And there we are using this oil paint. So here I'm painting the hose with oil only, the first round, and then we were painting it all blue after. There you can see like the old and the new part, and this image is here because of this painting by Hans Wiggen, which is a painter from Ørlandet, and the island is in Ørland kommune. So it's and here are some future plans. So we want to build this studio space there, of course, so we can work there more on a daily basis. For those of you that come with me on this field trip next week, I will talk more about this, and you will also see the island and experience it yourself. Using time with rebuilding a house and taking care of an old house have constructively occupied me with I've been really into this more technical things with the house, and so I've been working with architecture, but it's like especially this window sills and window framing have really occupied my mind since we started to work on this house. And in 2018 I was a part of this show at Fotogalleriet, Vårutstillingen. And here is my model for my sculpture there. So the plan was to make a sculpture that were photosensitive and based on the windowsill on the facade of Fotogalleriet in Oslo. So I wanted to make this prolonged windowsill from the window inside, and then to take it into the exhibition space for several meters, and then prepare it with this, I don't know if you've heard about this photographic, photochromatic pigment. So I've seen these photochromatic glasses, which becomes dark when you go in UV light. I wanted to have this photochromatic sculpture that was dark towards the window and then got lighter and lighter into the exhibition space. And then I measured and fixed this. I had to buy this coil of aluminium zinc, which is the material on the windowsills on Fotogalleriet. And I rolled it out and mounted it in the space. We made this system that we could take it, because it's very heavy, so we had to make this skinne system on the wall and then twist it up until the window, and then there it is, the prolonged windowsill. And here you can also see that the end is the same as the ending on the outside of the windowsills. Here I used to make this sculpture as photosensitive as I wanted it to be. I had to find an emulsion, or I found this powder that were photosensitive, this kind of photochromatiske pigmentet. But to make that into an emulsion, you need a very oil or a sticky material to get it together. And then I use this pine, kvae, furukvae, colophonium it's called in English. And then I got this pigment into the colophonium, and also I used chlorophyll to make it a little greener so that it would like not be totally transparent but towards a green color all the time. So this is the Daguerre and Niepce's first, or one of the first physiotype, which is a photo technique that was in the, I think they developed it in like 1830s. It was a very early way of making a photography. They used actually this colophonium and had it on glass plates or other material, and then they exposed the colophonium for daylight for days, and then they finally got this hardened colophonium, and then they had this technique of removing the more like non-hardened parts, and then they and then they had like this like photography or physiotype they call it. And here is John Darcel that I showed you earlier, and he's antitype, which is so he used like these liquids from fruits and vegetables, and also chlorophyll to have that onto this like very no, my brain has stopped working. Absorbing material, and then he exposed that for light. So because also chlorophyll or like other juices from fruits and vegetables are also photosensitive. So this is the antitype that he made. And here I'm adding the photochromatic pigment to the emulsion, and really working all of it into a total sticky emulsion, which I later had onto this prolonged windowsill. So here you can see it in the process. It's very sticky and very like syrup. It's super drippy. So it had to stay like this for days, and then like just to rinse off. And then here you can see it going off the sculpture. And this is the final. Here it is in the end. Talking of windowsills, my last work is probably embracing more or less like the interest for the ocean, my work on the island and the light capturing processes, and also the occupied mind of the window sills. So here's the window in the second floor on the house on Garten, which has a view directly out to the horizon in the ocean. This is the reflection or the light on the wall. So these are not coming in the proper. Okay. So I made this prolonged window sills, which has the exact measurements of the windows on the house. So this is a series of sculptural series, which is 11 prolonged window sills with the exact same measurements as the windows on the house. And all of them are, I have used this dandelion milk on all of them, as it's a little touch of both history, but also like this to setting roots someplace. Also, my brain is really getting tired.
So this is a dandelion root, so from the root you extract the milk?
And then the dandelion root has the same root system as a pine. It's growing directly down to the earth, and it's called perleroot in Norwegian. It's like it's almost like a sailboat. It's having this really, so it's really the same principle. So it's all connected somehow, especially for me. The Viking women also use this milk to massage their own skin, and it's also used now for tea and for like it's to to prepare a liver and to like live healthy. And yeah, but also it's like really about this like settling a place and how I have felt for the house in Garten. So here are the sculptures hanging on the wall in the exact same height as the windows in the house, and then there's 3 of them. So it's the bathroom, the living room window, and the window in the hall. This was one of them were in Berlin this summer on an exhibition space called the Knast, or it's like it's more of an old prison more than an exhibition space probably, but it's also like this. There were 25 Norwegian artists that were invited to invite 25 or one each German or German-based artists to have an exhibition together. I invited Susanne, so we were both in this exhibition. And I brought this window that faces the ocean on Garten to the cell in the prison in Berlin. Yeah. And it's made of stainless steel, which has this both industrial but also this like very modern prison. It's like this very hard material and yeah, which can go through a lot of episodes. This is from another exhibition this summer. It was in Steinkjer. So there's the 2 other windows. Yeah, and that was actually that's my last work. That's my latest. I feel that there's a lot of ocean in this work.